Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today, I have the team from Dark Avenue Films coming from England, UK. What's up, guys?
Hi, Travis.
I have Patrick Crellin. He is the director, and he's also co-writer, as well as Bethany White. She's serving as producer and co-writer as well. They have an amazing short film that's coming out called A Kiss of Death. So tell us a little bit about Kiss of Death.
Yeah, so Kiss of Death is a psychological horror short film. It's all about a young woman named Marnie, who's a university student, and she carries a deep, dark secret in that she has the power to kill whoever she touches, which she found out rather traumatically when she was a teenager. And so since then, she's kind of been concealing her identity and on the run. And then her kind of very contained life is kind of uprooted when her former best friend, who just so happened to be the sister of the boy that she killed many years ago, comes back into her life, kind of looking for justice and answers.
Wow. So what gave the both of you inspiration to write this short film?
Well, we're both big fans of Brian De Palma, and I think at the time that we came up with this was when we were at university together. We were watching a lot of Brian De Palma movies, and we were sort of looking at the unusual nature of a university in that it's full of people, and yet some people can be totally alone in that big community. And so we were trying to kind of combine this Brian De Palma element with that question, and so the idea we came up with was that somebody is so alone in this space because they physically can't get close to anyone or else they'll kill them. So it kind of stemmed from like Carrie and The Fury and movies like that, where you've got these sort of young women with these special powers and kind of following their stories.
Now, I'm a huge X-Men fan. When you hit me with told me about the idea of the film, the first thing I thought it was Rogue, who I love. Once one of my favorite X-Men. I was like, this is an amazing Rogue character. Did you get any inspiration from Rogue from X-Men also?
Yeah, I think especially those early the first X-Men movies that came out, I think especially kind of leans into the kind of body horror of those powers. I think in particular in Rogue, and I mean, I grew up on those films, so I love them anyway. So I think, yeah, it's kind of that putting Rogue into a more horror kind of context explicitly, that there isn't this magical school of a bunch of other people like her, that she's entirely isolated.
And actually, I think that there's a world where one of Marnie's ways of trying to cope with her powers is that she covers up her skin as much as she can. So I like to think that there's a world where she has watched the X-Men films and she puts on like long gloves like Rogue does. So that definitely plays into it as well.
Definitely understand that. Now, Bethany, as a woman producer, do you feel like this is some of the things that women have to deal with? You know, you have to hide some of your powers in society?
Absolutely. It's I've just finished a short film that Patrick produced for me, which was all about kind of finding your identity as a young woman and your place in society and accepting yourself as who you are. And that's definitely fed into the way that we developed the script for Kiss of Death. And writing with Patrick, you know, we've both got these sorts of inspirations from the films that we both grew up on, that fed into the development of the character, and I've brought my own experience of it as well.
That's absolutely amazing. Now, right now we're opening up. The crowdfunding is open right now. Do you have any perks that are being out there for any like exclusive perks?
We do, absolutely. We've got lots of perks available on our crowdfunder, especially for horror fans. So you can, at the very basic level, you can get access to the film before it goes into any festivals. So we've got a big distribution plan for this film, following on from some of the films that we've made before, but you'd be able to get to see it before anyone else. We're really excited, particularly about special effects in this film. So if you like getting a drop on sort of new effects sequences. We're really excited to share those with you, and you'll be able to get to see them before the festivals. And for horror fans in particular, we've got a perk where you get to see behind the scenes videos from our special effects team on how they put those effects together. So we're really excited to be working with a lot of the team from Censor, which was a British debut a few years ago from Pray No Bailey Bond. Dan Martin is consulting on our SFX, and he's worked on things like Possessor and Infinity Pool for Brandon Cronenberg. He's worked with Ben Wheatley a lot on High Rise and Free Fire. He's got a fantastic portfolio behind him. And Ruth Pease is going to be our on-set makeup designer as well, and she worked with him on Censor, and she worked on the most recent Mission Impossible film. So the caliber of people that we've got on this project is really, really exciting.
An amazing team. Now I'm seeing a lot of horror coming from the UK. I've done several interviews. Is it hard to transition from the UK over to the US when it comes to making horror films?
Well, in our experience so far, in short films, I feel like there's a lot of interest in both camps. There's a lot of festivals, and especially with the internet these days, it's so much easier and more accessible than it used to be to share a love of horror across the pond, especially in film festivals. Things like Fright Fest in the UK is a big one, and we'd absolutely going to be sort of sharing the love across the US and the UK, and as far as we can worldwide.
And I'm glad to see that horror is being, worldwide, is booming again. I mean, everywhere from Asia to Europe, and of course in the US, it seems like definitely we're getting a little more flavor from all parts of the world, which is great. I love the variety to see what every region has for horror. Now, right now, as a younger filmmaker, what are some issues and some struggles that you both have ran into?
Well, I think funding is always difficult. Funding is difficult in short film anyway. I think that especially if you want to do horror in the way that we're doing it, and that all the effects are going to be practical effects and not CG, I think there's, just money for materials and things is it can get quite expensive and elaborate. But those are the best results. And for us personally, we would never want to, we've always thought about this as the Thing 1982, not the Thing 2011. It's like, there's something timeless about practical effects. And that I think even when that they've, even when they've aged slightly, there's something so tangible about them that I think is irresistible. And so for us, it was like the trickiness with this is like we managed to be very lucky in building such an amazing team for the SFX. But I think funding is difficult. I think that short films, I think that there's a tendency in short films for like prestige dramas to get a lot of money thrown at them. And I think that it's very rare for horror short films to, kind of get the same kind of immediate assistance that that prestige dramas do. And so I think for us, it's like knowing that the horror community is such a welcoming and it's so welcoming. You just said about all those regions across the world. It's like you see the struggles that general audiences have with films with subtitles, and yet in the horror community, you see recommendations of films from all over the world, and people will just want to have as much as they can, watch as many films from it all over the place, because in the end, a good scare is a good scare no matter where it comes from.
I agree. Now I'm gonna start with Bethany. Bethany, working with Patrick, you guys seem like an amazing team. What are some characteristics that Patrick has that you're like, boy, I wish I had that? And then Patrick, I'm gonna shoot that over to you. Some strengths or that he has.
Well, that's easy. Patrick has ideas coming out of his ears. I can't keep up, and it's absolutely amazing. It takes me so long to come up with an idea that I think that's something that's going to be a really great film. And then I look over here and he's got a list of 50. So from that perspective, he's an amazing collaborator. And, you know, we've been working together for well over 5 years now. We've been writing together. It's as a writer, you develop so many scripts that never see the light of day, but it means that when you do get a script that you're really happy with, you know that that's the one that it's time to make. And I couldn't do it without him.
Patrick, the same?
Oh, yeah. Well, Bethany is incredibly detail oriented and incredibly fastidious, and like this is what makes her an amazing producer as well as a director. Having seen her direct earlier this year, it's like there is no job that Bethany won't do to the highest standard. It's like whatever it is, it's like you throw at her the most boring, mundane, and there's a lot of boring, mundane jobs in producing. Like you've got to, you know, fill in spreadsheets for hours. It's like Bethany's spreadsheet will be super organized and you'll never get lost in it. I think that's the kind of collaboration that we have, is that you know, Bethany is very creative as well. It's not that she's not creative, it's that we have different kinds of creativity that kind of complement one another, and both kind of different skills in producing that help the other. And so I think it's that we're yin and yang in that sort of sense, that we sort of complement each other's working style a lot.
And that's awesome, because I love seeing, you know, teams who put movies together, because you can see that they can bounce off of each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I've always been curious, like, who does what. So, I mean, absolutely amazing. Now, is there any possible way we could see Kiss of Death as a full length in the future?
It's a dream. I think we'd love to do it someday.
Yeah, I think we've got ideas for where it can go. I think when we were originally developing it, I think it was always the difficulty in those early drafts is that we wanted to put all these ideas we had in it, and so it kind of, the idea of what a feature could be has been ticking over in our mind since then. And, you know, knowing where the story could go past the end of the short film has been really exciting.
With the modern horror, gore and more gore is what's important. Recently, Terrifier series, is that something that you want to pump in a lot of your films? Do you want to have that overboard gore, or do you want to keep it to the 80s where there's some gore, but not to the point where people are running out of the theaters?
Well, I think it depends on the film, because I think something like Terrifier is, so much of it is kind of built around, well, both Terrifiers are built around these kind of set pieces. It's almost like an action movie in that way, and that it's like we build from each scene with Art the Clown, and it gets more and more elaborate and more grandiose. And I think sometimes, like, I think the comparison I'd like to make is something like, between Kiss of Death and another film, is something like, in terms of gore, like Talk to Me, where I sat and I watched that in the cinema, and I was expecting like your typical A24 fare where you don't get the goods until right at the end.
Yeah.
Like the gore and stuff. And then that scene with the brother getting possessed, and I was, whoa, you know, it was kind of
right from the beginning.
Yeah. It's and I think it's that sweet spot in the middle. I think that's the best place to occupy, and I think that's where Kiss of Death is like right in the middle of Terrifier and something more classical and A24 style.
Awesome. All right, so now I'm going to shoot to some fun questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Beth, I'm going to shoot to you first.
Mm-hmm.
If you could right now, if a big budget film distributor came to you and say, here's an unlimited budget, we want you to make a woman version of an iconic horror character. So that could be Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers. We actually seen it recently done with Pinhead. Who would it be?
Now that's tricky, because I just think of Tiffany and how fantastic a female Chucky she is, and a character in her own right. I'd love to see a female version of a Michael Myers. That could be really interesting because he's so much about sort of brute strength and masculinity. And if you were to have a female version of that, how would you bring that to life? That's a really interesting question. So I think taking something that is inherently so masculine, and that's the thing I'm interesting about, particularly working in horror and in a lot of the stories we like to tell are female led. It's like, how would having a woman at the center of this change things?
Michael Myers, where I feel like that's the only way you can bring Michael Myers back at this point in the next 10 years, because I feel like that series has died off with the last two movies. So to make a Michael Myers a woman would have to be, I mean, it would be a fresh take, breathe some fresh energy into that series.
What if Laurie Strode took up the mantle of Michael Myers?
There you go.
That could be a twist.
Yeah, but are we talking about a 70-year-old Laurie Strode, or are we talking about 50 from HBO?
Oh, I mean, I'd love to see Jamie Lee Curtis now tackle it. That could be incredible.
That would be. Patrick, I'm gonna ask you the same question.
Oh, I mean, I suppose it's already kind of a part of it, but I love the Evil Dead movies, and I'd love to do something. I know, I think that they've been skewing more female-led most recently, with the remake and then the Evil Dead Rise. What would I pick? I mean, I feel like you could do an interesting spin on like the Slumber Party Massacre, where it's a female killer, because that's such a kind of like almost Battle of the Sexes, that original one. It's such a Battle of the Sexes style movie, and that goes forward, that I think you could do something really interesting by flipping it around and just go nuts in the opposite direction, because those movies are nuts. And so I think doing something in that direction could be quite fun, just kind of flipping that dynamic on its head.
Awesome. All right, ready for question number 2?
So,
all right. What horror franchise are you done with?
I'm going to say Scream.
Really?
Mostly because, well, we didn't even watch the last one. I actually forgot that number 6 came out. We saw 5 in the cinema. And I think after that point, we just sort of drew a line under it. We'll go back to the earlier ones. We did watch, I'd only seen 1 and 2 for a while, and we caught up on the other. You'd already seen all of them, but we caught up on the other ones in between before the 5th one came out, and then we were disappointed by the 5th one, and then the 6th one rolled around, and it feels like, you know, Marvel movies is like, it's just another one now. What else are they gonna do with it, really?
I think I'd say the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that because we rewatched the original very recently, and that is genuinely terrifying even still. And it's one of those films that's perfect because of when it came out. It's like it could only have happened at that time, and there's a lot of, I think, luck involved, kind of like the original Evil Dead as well, where it's like luck has made something really special there. You know, it's like, and the more they kind of try and work on that formula, the less magic it kind of has. I think that's one. Yeah, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think too many of them.
It's only too many, but they can't, I mean, they can't recreate their, yeah, I agree. It's like, I know this is not hard, but the Predator falls in that same realm.
Yeah.
Where they can't recreate the magic from the original and anything that they make.
Yeah.
All right, so now the last question, I'm gonna put both of your creative juices together. I'm New Line Cinema, and I am giving you guys an unlimited budget to create the next Nightmare on Elm Street. Of course, you know Robert Englund's not going to be in it. What is your spin?
What's funny about this is that we actually have this already. This wasn't pre-planned, but we actually know, because as you can tell from the T-shirt, my favorite one is the 3rd film.
Mine's the Wishmaster. I mean, Dream Warriors. Yes.
Yes, and so my take on it would be continuing on from 3, doing a sort of Halloween, but 1 and 3 exist. 2, I mean, 2 doesn't connect to anything really.
Yeah.
But my idea with Nightmare on Elm Street was to tell a story about how we live in a far more medicated age than the 80s. And so in the dream world, kind of similar to the spin that they kind of do in Freddy versus Jason, where Freddy is weakened because nobody cares about him anymore. There's various pharmaceutical companies putting out kind of dream suppressants like the one in 3, but they're so widespread now that Freddy's like incredibly weakened. And I would get Robert Englund back. If he would do it, I'd get him back, because to me, he's the man. I would throw all the money at him I could to get Robert Englund back.
But if you couldn't get him, who would you get?
Who would I get? I've seen a lot of people say Kevin Bacon, and I like that idea. I think Kevin Bacon, facially not that far off Robert Englund. I think he's charismatic enough. I wouldn't want to mess with what makes Freddy great, which is his kind of sadistic playfulness. Like Jackie Earle Haley is a great actor in other things, but it's too heavy.
It is.
And to me, the magic of Dream Warriors is that it's so much fun to watch. It's like creative kills, and it's kind of, you bring back Nancy and her dad, and that's great. There's just and to me it strikes the best tone between kind of the scariness of the original and then the more silly elements that went on. So for me, if you got Kevin Bacon, I would just get him to be Freddy from the originals. You're Freddy from the originals. So like, there's no other Freddy that exists, and go with that.
See, Freddy Krueger is my favorite horror character by far. I don't want them to make another one, but if they did, it would have to some kind of way, like you said, come off of Dream Warrior and pretend like the rest of the crap didn't exist. Because after Dream Warrior, it just went downhill from there.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So where can everyone find you?
So the best place to follow us is on Instagram. We are at dark.avenue.film, and our website is darkavenuefilm.com. There's lots of updates about Kiss of Death as we're going to be progressing it, and we're also finishing up. We're in post-production on the film that I directed earlier in the year, which is another horror short called The Auteur. So check out that as well, and we look forward. We'll follow you back as well. We look forward to meeting you all and becoming even more part of the horror community. We love you guys so much.
Awesome. And by the way, look in the description, guys. I'm gonna have all the information for the Kickstarter and everything. So definitely support them and support everyone in the horror community. Guys, I appreciate you coming on. If you ever want to come back on to promote anything else, you're more than welcome. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much, Travis.
Yeah,
it's been lovely. Thanks for having us on and taking the time.
Anytime. All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.